Welcome to episode 4 of our Sedgwick Hybrid Home. I'm Anthony from OUTLIER.
And I'm David Miller from Ecowise Homes.
This is an exclusive series to Build Insight, and you're going to see more of us and our counterparts of Build Insight as we move forward on a multitude of different projects, and we're looking forward to sharing that all with you. David, it's been a little bit since our last episode. What has been happening?
A lot, Anthony. We had plasterers in here, the boys have done their fix, cladding's on, and the painters have been. Let's get in and have a look at it. All right, Anthony, at the northern end of the house, we've got some beautiful finishes happening here, mate. Tell me about it and tell the audience what's going on here.
Yeah, so just reverting back to that overall brief of trying to create a shearing shed, or that rural vernacular of a shed, we sort of really continued that theme with the material selection, particularly the external material selection. And it was also driven by the bushfire requirements here. It was a BAL 29, so we needed to ensure that we were selecting materials that were going to be not only durable, but also ember resistant. So we've got a bare stone product here, which is a pre-finished sheet material. It sort of has that concrete look, and that's a really sort of really fantastic contributor to the overall palette as well. Express joint, just because we want to have a little bit of a textural breakup or material breakup, compared to one of my favourites, weathering steel. This is particularly Core 10, which is a particular manufacturer of the weathering steel.
That's right.
Now this one hasn't rusted off as much, but we will have a look at some of the sun pods in a moment, and you'll get to see how it ages in place. It's a really great material. You get to watch it evolve. And
it's one of those conversations I've had with the client on this project, and that we could put an agent on it to make it rust a bit quicker and be a bit more consistent, but it's the beauty of it that he likes. It's sort of all staggered in different stages and that sort of thing, and that I suppose the imperfections in it is what he sees perfections in, so yeah. I
agree with that, yes. Huge factor here, and as always, bulk water management. It's our number one priority on any design and build.
Right.
And I can see some pretty unique flashing details here that are there to manage bulk water. David, are you able to just maybe step through what you've done here? And maybe, just how that might be different to how's it traditionally done, and then what you've done? Yeah,
so on all my projects, it's always custom folded flashings that we install above and around windows, that sort of thing. So they're all unique to every job and different, and all obviously with the intentions of to control bulk water and condensation. So you can see up at the very top there where we have our highlight window, you see a flashing that's folded over there, and that goes hard back to our building wrap and then folds out with a sort of 45-degree fold on it. So that flashing's there is controlling our condensation above the window, any bulk water. Even though we do have a gable, which I can prop you about soon, a gable with an eave, but I'm still concerned about water getting in there and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm doing. You see another flashing at the bottom of the window. That's got the rubber gasket that comes with the window manufacturer. And then we're just a flashing with a fold on it. It's got an upstand at the back. Again, that's just controlling bulk water from the outside. It's designed, if you look back to our previous videos, if the window does leak water, that the sill pans can then drain out, so it's not going to impede that at all. You can see on this wailing plate, which is the timber beam above me here, that's a flashing that goes to the back side of the wall cladding. Doesn't go all the way to our building wrap, because we want water to drain from if the window does leak or it gets moisture, and it can drain all the way down the building wrap. And then this window that the flashing we see above this window here, again, that goes all the way back to the wall frame or a building wrap, and then has that 45 fold on it to control bulk water. So, it's something we always give a lot of thoughts. Is flashing details is very important. As I said, bulk water is number one killer of a home. So.
So just to recap on that, so you've got your first flashing, which is taped to your external wrap or your WRB.
Correct.
So now we have a means for moisture or water, if it finds its way in there, to be able to drain down the WRB seamlessly onto the flashing and disperse out. And then you've got your ventilated cavity, so that's allowing airflow, which is now allowing it to dry out.
Correct.
And then you have another flashing that's installed on the backside of the cladding, as you say. So that's also now focusing on dealing with any water that's hitting that cladding, being able to come down on that flashing and disperse.
So it's all one big flashing that goes from the backside of our building wrap all the way through to manage bulk water at the front.
And it's still allowing ventilation up into that cavity so that it can dry out any moisture.
That's it.
Fantastic.
We don't want things to get wet, but things can get wet, providing it can dry. So
very important.
So Anthony, northern end of the home here.
Yes.
Shading, what are you doing here? What have you designed? Tell me.
Yep, so I've said this a few times. We are basically, where you and I are standing, David, we're looking straight north.
Yep.
So we're able to use one of my favourite shading strategies, horizontal shading, being it's north. And we've got a really large eave for the upper gable glazing. It's 1200 out. We were able to do some sectional studies through that and determine that that was actually going to adequately shade that upper gable end glazing at 1200. And then below us, we have this beautiful timber, hardwood Australian timber pergola. And we've also brought out the louvered timber infill pieces to 1200 wide. Further than that, we've angled those as well at 30 degrees so that we can let that winter sun in, get that solar gain in to heat up the inside of the home for free, but also keep all that summer sun shaded or out of the home and keep it all this glazing shaded in the summer months to try and keep that home cooler. It's a great little detail. I've seen it done effectively on multiple occasions, and I cannot stress this enough. Almost probably second to bulk water management is optimal shading strategies for your home, particularly when you go airtight, because they require such little energy to heat them. So make sure you've got shading, external shading, because once the heat's entered into the home, it still needs to be cooled down, and internal drapes and insulated blinds, for example, will help slow that transfer, but the energy's still in there and it's going to need to be cooled down. So yeah, externally is your first focus when it comes to a shading strategy.
Definitely. And while we're here, Anthony, these beautiful timber posts that have been installed, mate, they're quite chunky, but tell me about that with the design aspect.
Rough sawn as well. So this is again just following on to that theme of that rural vernacular of that shearing shed. The timbers were milled out of the mountains, in the early days and brought down and used on the side, and these are no exception. I can't recall where you said you obtained them from, but they're a 150.
Golden City might have
150 by 150 are they? Or
200 by 200.
200 by 200, rough sawn hardwood timber post. And they just add to that aesthetic even more so. And we've got the spotted gum, I believe, isn't it, for the rafters above us. It's one thing I will mention further to that is, again, because of the bushfire requirements, you do need to keep a minimum 75 millimetres clear so that embers can't build up at the base of that timber and ignite it, and also for termite protection. So as long as we keep a 75 millimetre inspection zone under the timber, we're able to then ensure that we can visually see any tubers that may be forming if we do have any termite infestation here.
All right, so the kitchen's in here now. Part of the design, Anthony, you had in it a custom island bench out of timber. Can you talk about the brief of it and how it's all come about, please? Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing that brings me more joy than being able to have some autonomy with a custom designed joinery piece. The brief for this one was essentially a movable, really heavy duty butcher's block. Something that you would see from sort of mid-century, our parents' generation, butcher setup, sawdust on the floor. That was the brief. We've used a engineered stone product for the top, and we've also decided to now make it a static bench rather than movable.
That was just about the size of it and practicality to have a engineered bench top on casts and things. So,
exactly. After a couple of discussions with the three of us, ourselves and the client, we realised that we don't need to do that. So we've also been very fortunate to be able to seek some reclaimed timber, some messmate, is that correct?
Yes, recycled messmate, yes,
And that came through Revival Projects in Melbourne. Harry from Pure Grain Joinery was able to supply and fit this all off for us and has done an exceptional job.
Definitely.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the brief for Harry from the client was, I want to be able to touch this timber, feel the roughness, but not get a splinter.
That's 100% right, and I think Harry's absolutely nailed it. The workmanship has been amazing by Harry. Being a recycled product, there is imperfections in it, but that's again the beauty of it. That's what the client's brief and what he wants and that sort of thing. So,
I think everyone's quite happy with this. I'll walk around and if you like, and just show you some of the front or the back end of the joinery. It's all soft close, and all the cabinet fronts are the same reclaimed messmate timber. It's all been machined down to just look as natural as it as it was intended, and that just returns around. And we've got the drawers all the way along on this one.
Yep, so no handles too, Anthony. It's all, you know, recessed grab rails and that sort of thing, which is nice,
Another consideration from Harry with his margins that are required and the, you know, the consideration that fingers can fit underneath there quite easily on all of these. And so this is where utensils and smaller pieces like the frying pans and things will all live, and all the pull-out drawers, and then we've got our larger pot pans and things to the rear, which we'll dive into in the next episode, and we look forward to showing you our,
It's pretty cool. You can actually see like Harry's attention to detail that's one continuous piece, and you can see the grain blends in the machining and that sort of thing. So that's pretty neat attention to detail.
It's just completely flush. And as all good carpenters and builders and cabinet makers will probably know, is that timber will always move. Natural timber has moisture content that will always vary, and that also brings movement. So he's done an exceptional job to make that all work perfectly with all the margins.
So Harry from Pure Grain Projects, check him out.
Please do. And just to conclude on that, you know, we're looking forward to showing you the next episode where we dive into the make-up supply air for the range hood extraction. So one of the unique things in this airtight home is that we have decided to take the extraction direct to outside air and not use a recirculation kit. So we'll get into the details on that one in the next episode. So the protective layer has now been removed around our feature column here. So again, another Australian hardwood species that's now had its oiling applied, and it's looking fantastic. I might give you a little sneak peek of some of the joinery that we'll be displaying in the final episode. So we have this joinery installed now at the entrance, and each one of these little cupboards has a little seated area for each one of the family members in the home. So the dirty boots go in here.
So I'm here in one of the stud pods of this home, and all the stud pods have been lined with engineered timber from Havwoods. I think it's their rustic barn range. One of the reasons we sort of felt engineered timber would be better than a natural timber in this sort of area is that being a stud pod, you know, it is obviously going to cop a lot of morning sun. So we want to have it so it's engineered, just less movement. That way we don't have to worry about beating in the corners and that, and same over here, just being an engineered product. You can see like the detail of my carpenters and that, what they've done on this project is obviously the connection between different materials sometimes can be hard to execute, and that does take a little bit of thought. So we've got a VJ paneling here, and then that's just a simple tile trim that's been painted in, and then the boys have just neatly detailed the engineered wood up against it. And similar with the window connections and that, like the rest of the home where we have plaster is done from a square set where it's stopped up and troweled square with plasterboard. And we try to implement that as much as possible to the exterior windows and doors in this home. So where we have our engineered wood here, we just used a bit of Tassie oak hardwood that will get tinted, which the painters at the moment are just sort of sampling up different colours to try and match the colour of this engineered wood as much as possible. And you can sort of see going forward here, again, as I mentioned, we have square set right throughout the home on all the external doors and windows. The boys have implemented this again too, just a little sort of 12 mil, that was a finger jointed pine timber that just has a nice little quirk and margin there to try and give as much as possible that square set look to match the rest of the home.
So this is a little sneak peek of the joinery in the laundry area now. It's the same reclaimed messmate timber all throughout the entire home that we talked about earlier on the island bench. We can see some of the floating shelves. We've also got a nice little seat here where we can slide our boots and shoes on underneath, keep them out of the way. This will also be showcased in the final episode of the home that we walk through it. And what we're really excited to showcase again is the centralized heat recovery ventilation system. And that's going to be located inside of this joinery cupboard behind me. So in this particular project, we're using a Zenda Comfo series centralized HRV system supplied via Fantech, installed by Passive Tech. And yeah, look, it's going to be great to really highlight that, how it operates, noise levels, and what the performance statistics look like that we've been able to retrieve from our previous projects with the data collection.
So one thing I really try to do in my builds as much as possible is have it that we can just get standard materials off the shelf from hardware shops. It's obviously not always happens, but as much as possible we try to. So the way we make our homes airtight in regards to a manhole access is we have just a standard plastic manhole surround that you'd see in any other home. We then have that covered up with a piece of white melamine. I prefer melamine over plasterboard that gets painted. Obviously plasterboard exactly matches the colour of the roof, but I find over time, fingerprints on the plaster manhole covers creates quite a mess, so I just like a piece of white melamine. As you can see in there, we then have just a standard 17mm plywood, which is just the offcuts of our plywood top plate. Go back to another video and have a look at that, which has been manufactured by us here at Ecowise Homes, and then it's sealed up with polyurethane. We then have 4 latches on that, and then we just have a rubber gasket on the top there. And all we do is another piece of 17mm plywood with the latches here as well to make it airtight. As you can imagine, there's insulation right around the roof, and I believe that just because you have a manhole, you don't need to stop your insulation. So we again just use offcuts of XPS foam to give it a bit of insulation to keep it a nice, well-performing, insulated and airtight manhole.
So we spoke about the importance and probably our number one mitigation measure for bulk water management externally. Well, this is at the equal most importance, our internal bulk water management. Waterproofing, I would say, is probably the biggest failure point, but nothing else in the construction industry, particularly in bathrooms, en suites. And I would say that this one particular point that I'm about to point out now is going to be probably the biggest flaw. So at the entrance point, where we terminate our waterproofing membrane, we have a water stop. And that water stop, technically, should continue around at the location where a cavity slider or a hinge door is. And a lot of the time it doesn't. So when we have water forming on our waterproofing membrane, it's able to get out into the adjoining rooms. And that is where all the problems begin, because typically we're using timber architraves, particularly MDF and skirting boards. They're going to absorb all that moisture. The carpet's going to absorb all that moisture, and it doesn't have the ability to dry out, and we're going to see mold growth. And a lot of people are now finding out they've got sensitivities to mold, and it can make them very ill. There are numerous people in my discussions on the podcast or on various conversations with others who have highlighted that they had extreme illnesses in their homes they were living in and had to vacate because they were able to determine using a building biologist or other means that it was due to mold. So the importance of this cannot be stipulated more highly. David, I mean, I'd appreciate if you could walk through how you manage bulk water internally in these areas. And yeah, just step us through your processes and the importance of that as well.
So I'll just continue a little bit about Anthony was saying about the water stop here. This is a bit different to what you probably see in most homes, the way it's set up. If you go back to the earlier videos, you can see that we actually had a 35mm recess here. So now we've had our a screed put in here, which is just a sort of a cement-based product that brings the floor level up just below the tile level, gives ourselves enough room for the thickness of the tile and the glue, and then I'll show you later on where we have our fall in the shower to get the water away. So what I'm trying to say here is that traditionally you would see your bathroom and your floor level in your bedroom or hallway or whatever it would be is the majority of the time the same height. We're obviously that 13mm lower, which makes it easiest for the water stop, but it still has the same practicality and you need to give it the same amount of detail. Normally you'd see like an aluminium trim run across there, and I do believe that a lot of guys do that aluminium trim, but it's these little returns either side that are critical that you've got to return it around, seal it up. So the way I think of waterproofing is that it's virtually a tank.
Exactly.
So anything 13mm above here, we want to be able to hold water like a tank. And that's the way I give a lot of thought and consideration. So obviously, yeah, you can see here, we have the water stop across the cavity slider, across where it meets the slab, and then that cavity slider again. And the same thing here where we have our square set reveal, that's been sealed up. We're going to water stop across there, so we're not having any issues.
And I will point out that this is not just an overflowing basin or bath that is causing these issues. Technically, grout is porous in between the tiles, and some tiles even have some level of porousness to them. So the water actually does find its way below the tile layer, and that's why this waterproofing is so important, because it will, not if, it will always see moisture, and we want to make sure that we've got the ability for that to be contained within those wet areas.
For sure, yep. So the product that we use is a Daveco product. It's K10 Plus. I find it to be a very reliable waterproofing membrane. I pretty much use it my whole building career and that sort of thing. But yeah, come through and we can start to show you about the details of the waterproofing in here. You can see around the outside perimeter, we have a mesh tape that goes up the wall, and then that gets returned there. So that sort of bonds the concrete slab to the walls. You keep moving through. Another neat little detail is that we have the waterproofing on above the splashback, and that's been sealed down to the bench top with a piece of a bead of polyurethane. Again, we want to make sure that there is watertight, that we don't have any pinholes in it, because if that leaks, then it's going to get in behind the cabinetry and cause a lot of issues and that sort of thing. So another neat little thing that we do, which is to code, is we're required to stop our architraves up off the waterproofing, and that's got to be 3 mil higher than the tiles. So when the boys do their fix and architrave, that's always kept up high, so it's not bedded down into the waterproofing.
Let's talk about shelves, because I think that's also another space that can accumulate a lot of water. We like to put our shampoo bottles and soap and everything up on top of the shelf or niche. How have you approached that? Because I think that's a really important detail.
Yeah, so come through. Again, it's all been taped with the mesh that I just explained about before. But if you go back to the previous video, you'll see that we actually set, before plaster, a piece of masonite packer at the back of that underneath the plasterboard, which tilts that up to give it fall. The waterproofing membrane works fine, providing it can dry from time to time. If it's continually wet, it can actually go milky and break down, and then obviously once it's broken down, your waterproofing's not working. So anywhere within your shower, I make sure it's got fall on it. So that there has the fall, so then if water does come in from the shower head, that it can dry out. Another crucial...
Puddle flanges, that's another one that I'd like to really talk about as well. So
for sure.
This is something that I see get missed, where the waterproofing doesn't entirely return over the puddle flange at all times. So maybe, step through that, Dave.
Yeah, so as you touched on earlier, this is the waterproofing membrane. This is what's making this home watertight. It's not the tiles, it's not the silicone, it's not the grout. So as we said earlier, this has a fall on it here. So that's been, screened in, so any water within the shower drains to here. We have that mesh tape going around here, and that's actually been folded down into the puddle flange. So the puddle flange is designed that water, comes down in here. We then have a chrome grate that you normally see in a shower on top. But again, the tiles probably manage the bulk of the water, but that little bit of water that penetrates through the waterproofing can then drain into here.
Can you walk us through the penetrations, David? I know, we've always got a shower mixer and shower rows, or where the head outlet comes for the shower. How you do detail the penetrations?
So it's similar to, as I was saying about the floor, anything on the floor, that to a 13 mil higher than the water stop where I was showing you earlier. I want it fully tanked, I want it fully sealed. I know this is a vertical wall and you think I'm crazy trying to make it watertight, but again, so obviously that's continuous waterproofing there, but we have penetrations. So where we have penetrations, we make sure we seal them up with polyurethane. You can see up here the shower head, that's all sealed. And it goes the same too. We have our a toilet waste here. and that's been fully sealed right around it. Again, it's, as you said, bulk water, mate, we've got to control it. So.
Yeah, and I know we specify this on all of our drawings now, but additionally to the entry points to the wet area where we've got water stops that we've just spoken about, we also put one at the entrance to walk-in showers every single time as well. That's where most of our water is that's where all the water is mostly, in the showers. Definitely. So we just want to ensure that if we can, we stop it there and isolate it to get it to that waste as quickly as possible. So yeah, I guess that's actually quite a good thought to have, is just thinking about how do we get the water out of the space as quickly as possible. So waste locations and water stop locations, they can be optimized to ensure that can be that's what can happen. And you know, external windows behind me, I know that's a question we get asked a lot, is like, what about windows in close proximity to showers? They're never ideal. They are always another opening, a larger opening in those spaces, but if that's what you really desire, the same principles apply to the shelf. You can grade that sill out when you tile it and ensure that the waterproofing continues around, but you'd certainly want to try and continue the waterproofing around to at least the window frame and then grade that bottom sill out with your tiles as well. Again, I'll sign off on this one, just really emphasising the utter importance and how critical it is to ensure your waterproofing is done correctly in wet areas such as bathrooms, en suites, particularly shower areas, because that is where most of the issues arise when it comes to failures in building and construction. So consider what we've spoken about today. If that's what's happening in your home, fantastic. If not, maybe just look into it a little bit further or reach out to us. We're happy to answer questions too.
For sure.
We really appreciate everyone's support, and we hope that you've been enjoying watching as we progress through the journey of our Sedgwick Hybrid Home. David, this is a really pivotal moment for us as well, as you know, from here on, we're all going to be putting this content up on our new platform, Build Insight. It's something that we've been working on together for months now, for a considerably long period of time, and it's really exciting to see it come to fruition. So what that means is you're going to be getting even more content from various contributors doing all of this excellent work in the high performance sector and just generally across the board in the construction industry, supporting those who are interested in industry or in industry, or those who are looking to get into industry.
That's right. So guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for the final one, which will be the reveal of the finished product of this home. So thanks for your support, really appreciate it. Thanks guys.